Fan YouTube page. Show's brought to you by our good friends who we'll be hanging out with in Kansas City this weekend and for Monday Night Football. The law firm, Condori & Murray.
They do estate planning, elder law, real estate transactions, probate administration. Their attorneys are always there to protect you and your family's assets. Schedule a free consultation with their team today by visiting kmlawyers.com and be sure to let them know that we sent you. That's kmlawyers.com.
Before we fly to Kansas City on Saturday, we will drive to Fairfax on Friday. We'll be doing the show live from Craft House in Fairfax, 2 to 6:30. Come on out and kick it with us ahead of a huge Week 8 in the NFL. Good college slate as well. We're getting you ready for a big pigskin weekend. Friday, all day long, the Grant and Danny Show. It's a Friday field trip out and about in Fairfax.
That's a good little spot, the Craft House.
Let's go to the Rude Guest Hotline. Rude, the most reliable heating and air conditioning products in the DMV, and talk to our guy, John Keim, covers the Commanders for ESPN. John, let's start with the news of the day. Jayden Daniels has been ruled out. He will not play in Kansas City against the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. What can you tell us?
That it was expected, because first of all, like when Dan Quinn talked about on Monday that, the good thing is it's not significant, not long term, but you still know with hamstrings they're tricky. And then, certainly I would talk to other people who yesterday did not expect him to play. So not surprising, the right move, just to get him, make sure he's right, because with hamstrings you go back out there, you do more damage, you got a lot worse road ahead of you. So not a surprise, unfortunately.
Seattle? Question mark?
I think that would be more likely, yeah. I don't think that is out of the question at all.
So what do you make of the timing? For the record, I love that they did this today, not only for your sanity and my sanity and the sanity of fans. I hate the Willy Woney.
Yeah,
is he practicing? Yeah. I think it's actually counterproductive for the team, and I like giving Marcus the week to be the guy and seeing what that looks like. Having said all that, I do wonder, like a little bit, is the fact that they just announced it today an indicator of severity in some way?
I don't think so, because I have yet to hear that it's anything long-term. Again, like Quinn said that, but even talking to other people yesterday, like not the sense that I got. I do think that a lot of it was they knew he wasn't going to play, and that, like, why go through the charade? And I don't think he wants that, will he or won't he play this week? So I think that's part of it. But listen, like, we all know what's gone on this year. Like, nothing has gone as they hoped. So I can say that, certainly Seattle's in question is in play, but we won't know until next week for sure. And then next week we'll get an update on Wednesday and then an update on Friday. So, yeah. So but I don't think it means that it's going to be some long-term thing by any means at all.
Is this a bigger picture concern here? It was mine, John, for the record. I love Jayden Daniels, the prospect. And by the way, this kind of analysis, this genius level stuff here from 2 to 6:30 every day. But he was my favorite quarterback in that draft. Yeah. That includes Caleb Williams, by the way. Just I loved him so much. Yeah. This was the thing I was worried about. That frame, the injuries, the hits he was inevitably going to take just playing the position. Then you add in some of the running. I'm just nervous about it. This is now 3 pretty significant time missing injuries. I guess he missed time with 2 of them. Wasn't himself last year for that broken rib for a little while. Is this a bigger picture concern?
I don't know that I want to go there just yet. I do think, like, for any quarterback, I mean, Lamar's had issues. Joe Burrow's had issues. There are a few guys who haven't. And so it's like, obviously Mahomes has had a couple blips, right? But that's it. So, perhaps, I don't know that I'd like to see more, I guess, time to really weigh that, because like you said, like last year, he had to come out of a game, but he didn't miss a game. And I don't think, like, even in that Dallas game, I'm quite sure, like, if they had to win that game, that he wouldn't have come out. I think that was a, little bit of soreness, get him ready for the playoffs, that kind of thing. The knee, that's a scramble thing, right? The rib was a scramble thing. So, like, those things are going to happen, right? And that's the hard part, is weighing that against, like, this is the quote-unquote superpower that he offers, like that ability. So you're going to, that you run a risk with that whenever you have a quarterback who does. But then, I say that, and, like, Joe Burrow's getting pummeled mostly in the pocket. And the play the other day was a free blitzer that I think that fooled them completely. And that's just, I kind of put that in a separate category. I think the other two are a result of the legs the dynamic ability that he offers. The other one the other day was just an unfortunate play. So I'm kind of talking around it a little bit because I don't know. I mean, I think anybody had that concern about the durability, and when you see the way he played in college. But I think I would be more concerned if I felt like he was being reckless on some of those, rather than just sometimes, unfortunately, like the one in Green Bay, it's a helmet to the knee. That's, you know what I mean? So I don't know yet if it is, but I understand why you might feel that way for sure.
John Keim of ESPN. Yeah, because I think this is so fascinating, and this is like the biggest kind of story of the week in this sense. Because I think there's a difference, just to workshop this out loud and get your reaction, between like, I'm concerned about the durability, 3 injuries, 24 regular season games in, but I don't necessarily think he's going to be injury prone, if that makes sense. But like, when you looked at his size, his height and weight, like his frame, there aren't guys that get drafted at the top of the board with that height and weight necessarily. That was something that was covered and written about, and it's a very small group of players. And then you add in some of the contact he's going to take and the fact that he has the highest scramble rate in the league. But you're right, he didn't miss games last year. He probably should have missed a month because he wasn't Jayden Daniels while he was playing through the rib. And I don't know if that's better, like if he's going to be banged up because he's super tough but playing through it. So I don't even know if I have a question, but we're getting to a point now, and I don't know what the line of demarcation is, where you go, is durability something that becomes a concern? And I'm with you. I don't think yet it is, but it's certainly got to – eventually it is. I don't know what that line looks like.
Well, I think the only way to disprove it is by being durable, right? So I don't know that, even last year with the rib, I mean, the next week he came back against New York and played a pretty good game. In the first game with that. So I don't, you know what I mean? So I don't, but then something was off after that, right? And we know there was an injury there. So I don't know. Like I'm with you. I'd like to see more time and see how it is because, there are a lot of quarterbacks who have enough quarterbacks, high level quarterbacks who have had some of these issues. Now you don't see it with Josh Allen, who plays a certain way as well. But that dude is big, and he's different because of that, and I think that helps him, So, I don't know, man. I think I want to see more, but again, I think you have to wonder because he's more narrow than he is, like, just skinny. You know what I mean? And you've been around him. He's more narrow. And I think, like, when, it's going to make it tough, right? It's just the reason why you want him is because of that ability, but that ability also puts you into some more vulnerable spots. But again, on Sunday, I put that in a different category because that was a guy in the pocket putting the ball down because you got a free blitzer in his face, and just kind of unfortunate. But having said that, it still happened. Whatever the circumstance, it still happened.
John Keim, ESPN, with us here on G&D. So you referenced this earlier. I want to go to, again, a big macro picture thing. It has not gone like a lot of us thought. I don't think it's going how they thought, certainly, in terms of whether it's injuries or some uninspired play or how bad the defense has been, et cetera. What's the biggest slice of blame pie here? What's the biggest reason why they're off to this 3-4 start, coming off one of the worst losses of the Dan Quinn era?
So you guys give me till 4:00?
That's right, as long as you want.
Yeah, I think you parcel it out, right? And like, I'm going to bring up injuries, and they're going to say injuries aren't an excuse. Well, for the offense, when you lose Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel, and then you have to throw Noah Brown in there, we all know Noah Brown has had durability issues, sure. But they didn't anticipate, I think, being at least out for 8 games, right? So, like, he was someone they were at least hoping would contribute for at least 12 games. But you lose Deebo and Terry. Well, that's going to – and then McLaurin missing all of training camp. Like, there has been no rhythm in the passing game since the start of training camp. Then at times, like, they still move the ball. They were still putting up points despite that. But at some point, it really hurts you. And then when you're trotting out some players that were on the street or on the practice squad, for most of the season, that's a tough way to live. And it's, you see defenses adjusting to them. In Dallas, a team that plays heavy zone went heavy man the other day because they weren't threatened by it. And it's a way that you can then bring an extra safety up to help stop the run. So I think like that, there's a cumulative effect there. Now, we all know other teams have had injuries and still managed to succeed. So like, you can't just blame it on that. And I think defensively, maybe some of it is, did you did you have the right personnel? Do you have, is the scheme the right way? Are you asking on the run fits? Are they doing the right things, or is there something that needs to be tweaked there? Right. So there's all across the board in that area. And, they wanted to play heavy press man, but then are those corners capable of that? And I think they shifted away from that after a couple games for that reason, because they haven't been. So, I think there's a lot of reasons. And then the other part is the schedule is tougher. But, Chicago, Dallas back-to-back, you got to split that at worst. Right? And so I think, that is part of it too. Like there is a tougher schedule, but the toughest part is coming up. So it's not like it's been, you know what I mean? So yeah. I think that's going to contribute when you look at the final record. You know, look at the second half of the season, like all these the games they have, like that's part of the reason. But to this point, I don't think, it is a next man up league, but you're talking with the receivers, it's a next unit up, right? You don't just replace, everybody, if Terry McLaurin's wanting a certain amount of money, getting paid a certain amount of money, they don't have another guy on the roster like that you say, who's a budding star or anything like that. So there's that toll. And then Jayden in and out now. And, so I think like that all adds up. But defensively, it's just been, similar issues to last year, whether it's miscommunications, get that fixed, then it's something else, then it's something else, and then it's something else. But it's still the same result.
Do you see what I see when you watch these games back, that they really lack team speed? And is that something they can fix in the short term?
In the short term, I mean, yes, I do think whether it's playing fast or having speedier players out there, and the guy that I always point to that I think others would is Jordan McGee. Like when he plays, you feel that speed, that energy. And right now he's their third linebacker. So, I think, going into the year, it was like he would be, if you had to say who's the heir apparent to Wagner on the staff, on this team, it would be him because of that. But where is he at with all that? And if people want to know, can you replace him? Could you replace him on pass downs? Perhaps, and get some more speed out there. I don't know. You have to know more. I would want to know more about how he is. It's one thing to be out there with Louvu and Wagner. It's another thing to be out there being the guy to make the calls and to be the guy in charge. That's something different. Is he ready for that? And are they ready for that? So, but he's the guy that you could put out there that would offer some more of that. But I don't know who else. I know Keim ran a fast time, but does he play to that speed at this point? That's the key. Are you playing to your speed? And I don't know that we saw evidence in the preseason that he was ready for that. And then it was also about the tackling, consistent tackling, et cetera. So is he ready for that? I can't say he's not because we haven't seen him since the preseason. But in the preseason, I don't know that you saw guys he's ready to go right now, right? So I don't know what he's done since then as far as the progression. But so I don't know that there's a lot on the staff on the roster that you say, okay, you could bring these guys in and add a lot more of that. Percy Butler is fast, but Jeremy Reeves plays fast because that's just how he is. So, overall, I agree with you, Grant, that, you just, whether it's adding more speed or getting guys to play to their speed, they could use more of that.
Hard to answer here, but take a crack at it. Let's say Terry McLaurin does play this weekend. What version of him do we expect, and when do we expect him to actually be Terry McLaurin? That's
a great question. That's something I tried to figure out myself as well, Danny, because he came into the year, and when you miss all of camp, he and Jayden had banked a lot of reps, as they like to say, a lot of really good chemistry last year. But it had been a long, you're talking 6-7 months between games. And then, you miss all of camp. And so you don't have that timing down. And it showed early on. But, Mariota came in and connected with him right away against the Raiders on a deep ball, right? So maybe he can come in and give you something. I think what you at least get is the threat. And I think that's what they need. And he can still, as long as he can go out there and run, he's a threat. And, and then it's a matter of, are they connecting on it? And so I don't know though, that's the question I wonder about too, because it did take them a few weeks to get back to a certain point this season. And now you're missed 4 more games. That's not easy. So I think the good thing is Mariota being a veteran helps. And they have worked together. That helps. But I'm with you. I just don't know. I don't have a good answer for that because I'm curious to see that as well.
John Keim of ESPN on Grant and Danny. Commanders getting ready to go to Kansas City this weekend. They play the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Cakes, what about Dorrance Armstrong's injury? He was leading them in almost every pass rushing category. They're a top 10 pressure group still, sacks per pass attempt group still. I think some of that is just a small sample in giant games against the Giants and the Raiders. That said, what's your plan now without Armstrong if you're Joe Witt, do you think?
Well, Jacob Martin, for a guy who came in as a backup, I think for his role has done a good job, right? But he's not, like, you didn't bring him in here to be a starter, although he has started games. So I think you just have to be extremely creative, whether it's sending more pressures that maybe you've cut back on a little bit. And I'd have to look at the numbers recently. So this is generally, I'd like to know more of the numbers today, and I just don't have them about how much they've blitzed or sent 5 in the last couple of weeks compared to early on. But I know there was cutting back because you wanted more in coverage and trying to get more with 4, and it's not like they didn't send somebody. It's just, can you do that a little bit more often? Do you feel comfortable enough to do that with the coverage to do that? So could you, send Luvu maybe a little bit more often as well, and then maybe some creative lineups on the front. Like after Dorrance went out, like there were times where you'd have one, it'd be a 3rd and, I think there was a 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 4, where the only true defensive lineman on the field was Daron Payne. Can you do some things like that to generate some pressure? Or can you do things like you have Jalen Holmes and Javon Kinlaw, both of whom can play inside and then sometimes at end? And can you do those, like a lineup of Martin, Daron Payne, another tackle, Johnny Newton or somebody, or Holmes, and then Kinlaw as an end? So you can do a little bit more of that as well. So I just think you have to be a little bit creative and make sure that the coverage holds up better than it has. And that coverage, I include like linebackers in that, of course.
John, you mentioned Luvu. Pace-wise, it's not too far off of last year. A couple sacks through 7 games. You get a sack and a half in a game, and all of a sudden you're right back on what he did last year. But as you're watching, it doesn't look the same with him in terms of his impact. Maybe it's more attention. I don't know. What do you make of his season to this point? And especially without Armstrong, now's the time, right?
Yeah, and that's where yes. And I think like he's had some really good games against the run, really good, and made impactful plays there. Those aren't the ones right now that, first of all, they get teams into second long, and it hasn't helped them.
That's a death sentence for some reason.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of been a problem, and but so you see him do that, and he was making some impact plays in the run game, and I think what yes, could you see maybe a little bit more of that? You almost have to figure that, because what else are you going to do? And you can, like, Bobby Wagner's a good blitzer. Can